Yeah, you can feel free to leave this. I'll just stay on because to make sure people know, but. Oh yeah, that's a lot more clear. Great, so.
Okay, let me see if my other thing's finished. I don't know why I was giving me problems. It says, oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll wait a little longer for some people.
Yeah, it is early.
Yeah, I want to charge my computer, but I'm afraid the Wi-Fi is going to fail again because I don't want the live share to kick people. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I'm at 81%.
We'll be good.
Should be okay. I don't think this would take that long. So, okay, this button's ugly right now, but I'll see if we have time to do some styling. Okay, we're at 12 people.
Cool. I think since it is the morning and I think a lot of people are asleep, we'll put up the recording for this later, so I'm sure a lot more people will see it later.
Okay, cool.
Feel free to start.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, cool. Thanks, Rieko. Okay, I'm gonna give a quick demo, and this code is not completely styled, but we'll try and push the styled version. We made some small changes just to make it easier for the workshop earlier this morning. But this is basically what we're gonna add. So you have your user list page that I believe you all built out already. And then we added this create new user button. So you can enter your first name. I'm just gonna write some random stuff. Email, and then you can click what stock you like and you'd hit create user and it should add it to the database, and you can also view the user you just created here on the front end. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So go ahead, Katherine, you can go ahead and start.
Okay. Hi, so first we're gonna create a new folder. Sorry, I have so many tabs open.
Here, wait a second. Okay, I'm on you.
Okay, so I'm gonna create a new file and it's gonna be called create user modal.js, and that should open. Okay, perfect. It's on.
Yeah, so this should be in a folder called create user modal as well. And then you have that JS file.
Okay, so we're first gonna import a few things so then we can use everything. So import React use state from React. Yeah, so these are just import statements. I'm gonna quickly type all them in. This is basically gonna be the user or the CSS file, but we're not gonna create it just yet, but I'm just gonna import what we would call the CSS file. Oh wait, but then that would produce an error. So I'll import it later. So first we're gonna create a function that returns a HTML string or just a bunch of HTML so it gets processed and we can see it and display. So we're going to call it create user Modal. And like I mentioned, it's going to return some HTML. And what we're going to do in our form is we're going to have them input first name, last name, and email in text boxes. So to do that, we would first give the HTML a label and then do first name. And then right below that, we would have input type be text box. So they can type it in a text box. And then we would have their first name to be required. So before they like submit in the input. So there we go. Oh, a little bit laggy in my part. And then we would have another label letting them do the last name. Okay. Why is it underlined over here? Label first name. Oh, form.
You forgot the form tag.
My bad. Yeah. So let me just copy paste that in here. Okay. Yeah. Oops. Input type label. Okay. And then label last name. Oops. Input type as well to be a text box. And also make that required. And the last one, like I mentioned, we're gonna have it as email. Oops, email. And this time the third input type would be email instead of text, just so when the user puts in their email, like it checks that it is in proper email format. And then Cynthia can start talking about the drop-down menu for the stock options.
Yeah, so continuing off of that, we're gonna make a new label for the favorite stock, like drop-down menu portion. Oh, what? Okay, so first you're gonna put in a label and just name it favorite stock. And then to create the drop-down menu portion of the form, you're going to be using a select tag. And inside the first tag, you're just going to create the, okay. There's something, okay. And make the ID favorite stock. And then the name also, oh my God, sorry, I'm having like, okay. And then the name also be favorite stock. And then, yeah, inside the select option, you're gonna be, well, for now, we're just gonna hard code a couple of like options in the drop-down menu. And later on, we'll like change that though. So for now, like the drop-down menu, we can just have some options. So put in an option tag and then say, just give a couple of examples of like your favorite stocks. So let's just say Apple, and then put in another option like Google, and then I think Tesla, and that's good for now. Yeah, so after that, we're gonna create the button. So like the submit button or like the create user button. So first you're gonna be putting an input tag And then it'll be the, so the class name is going to be button, and the type is submit, and value is create user. And then you're going to create a button tag. And then same thing here, class name. Class name equals to button. And then the type, this time is going to be a button type. And then you're just going to, it'll be a cancel button. And yeah, that's for the button. And then next we're just going to create an error message. So this is, we're going to like specify it later, but for now we can just put in ID equals to error message, and then you guys will write in code for this later, but this is the second part of the form.
And then one other thing we forgot earlier is go ahead and add a class name to the top of the form. I believe it's, because this will be used for styling later. So class name equals my form here. And then we'll be adding in some of the functions for handling submission as well later. And then lastly, don't forget to export the React component you just created. So you're going to type export defaults. Let's see, create user modal. Okay, and I think that's it for this. Oh, this part. So Jessica, I think. Oh wait, no. Are we doing styling next? Right.
Do you want to import it in user list, and then we can show what it looks like without styling?
True. Okay. Good idea. I'm gonna go ahead and do that really quick. So I believe it is. Sorry, let me pull up the file really quick. So we're going to import it into user list. So go ahead and go to your user list file, and then I'm going to just do create user modal, whatever you called it, from app/components. So just like we imported the user card here. And then
the index. We need to change the index.js too.
True, yeah. So that's another thing. So we have this import, and then you also want to go to index.js, and you want to also add that in there. So I'm just gonna, oh wait, are you sure it's here?
It's the, you can just, can you go follow me?
Yeah.
So it's in index.js, but it's under the components one. So it's like source app components, and inside the components folder, there's an index.js. And this is basically exporting like the modal, and that way, like each time you don't have to write down this whole like path name. You can just say like from app/components. So we'll do the same thing here for create user modal. And then that should work.
Okay, cool. And then I'm gonna go back to user list. So this should be imported in here. Don't forget this one. And then I'm just gonna put it at the top of this user list component right now. So I'm gonna go down to that return statement. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create an extra div because I do want to add another HTML element in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that div around here. And then I am going to add that user modal right here. So create user modal. Yeah, the one we just created. So if I go ahead and save that, let's see. Running into an issue, Jessica. I don't know if this is outside the source directory. Let's see. Create user modal. That's what we named it, right? Look at this. Good. Index.js.
Wait, sorry, can you show the error again?
Oh, it's right here on the terminal.
Oh.
Oh, you forgot this. Here, wait. This is
Oh.
the dot.
Thanks.
There we go. So, oh, sorry about that. Let's see. What is this happening? User list, user modal. Sorry about this, everyone. I'm just gonna take a look at, let's see, input is a void element tag and must neither have children or, that is weird. Okay, just a sec.
Oh, can you try refreshing?
I am not sure where this error is right now. Let's see. Input type button. Value is, oh, here. This is not supposed to be here. Oh, never mind, that's not it. Darn, okay. Shoot. I'm pretty sure we followed exactly what we had. See, at create modal 13, this one, input type equals text, required. That looks fine to me. I guess for now, we'll just see if that, okay. 10. Okay, interesting. Oh, it's supposed to be at the, okay. So I'm not sure exactly. We'll try and fix that in a sec, but you should have something that looks like this at the bottom. Is anyone else running into that same error? Oh, React prefers self-closing tags. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and try that out. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So yeah, you should have something that looks like this. Make sure that you use self-closing tags for your inputs. But yeah, so we're gonna do some quick styling because this looks really ugly right now. So go ahead, Katherine or Cynthia.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so under create user modal, we're gonna create a new file, and it's just gonna be the CSS file, which we're gonna do all of our styling. So hold on. And that should be created. Okay, it displays. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna first import the file under the create user model.js file. So create user model.css, and then we're gonna hop back into the CSS file. So what we're first going to do is that we need to import some global variables. So add import globals, the hack variables that we already have. And we're gonna create this little class here. So when it goes and checks for, so under create user modal, there is the class name myform, so it knows which styling, what to do. So we're gonna first have font size and just make it 0.8 EM, and then the width also, which affects like the modal's width of the display screen, just like this is what it's gonna show like as like the background when it displays. So it's gonna have like those like text and the input boxes, and there's going to be a background behind it. So it's gonna be a little box, and then have some padding. This is all for like spacing. And we're gonna have this color, background color, be ember blue. And then border radius. So yeah, this is also like spacing as well. So we also want to make sure like the position when it is being displayed is fixed. So like this purpose is for like when you scroll up and down, is still like the display screen still going to be in the same or the Modal is going to be in the same position. And left 50%, top 50%. Oops, missing a colon here. Transform, translate. And then the Z index is basically just like which the layer is going to be shown like on top of all of like the users and stuff as well. And then I'm also going to style the labels, which is like the first name, last name, and like email. Like we're going to have that displayed as white, like the text over there displays block. And then we're going to have some spacing. Text, so that's just the spacing for the text, and then we're going to also have the font be bold so it is seen more clearer. And then Cynthia can talk about how we would style the input boxes and yeah, the select for the drop-down menu.
Yeah, so next we're gonna style, like she said, the input boxes and like the drop-down menu. So first we're gonna specify those with this. So basically what we're doing here is that I want like all of the, for consistency purposes, I want the input boxes, like all of the input boxes and the select box to have the same styling. So we're just making it like a list, and then whatever I'm gonna put in here is gonna all apply to these. Yeah, why is it underlined?
It's fine. Just keep writing because you don't have anything.
Yeah, okay. So this is just gonna be the styling. So for the border radius, we're just gonna make it tiny spacing. Display, it'll be a block width. Yeah, so these are all just styling that like I personally prefer, but if you want to change it up a little bit, feel free to do that.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna go ahead and save this really quick. And then if you look on the right here, this is what you should have after all the styling we just added in. Okay. And then I think Jessica, I think it's your part next.
Yeah, do we want to take a pause just to make sure everyone's on the same page as us?
True, yeah. Does anyone have any questions or just kind of confused about anything that we did? Okay, I mean, I think if no one has any questions, we'll just keep going.
Okay, so next we're gonna go back to the create user modal. And then what we're gonna do is right now, like the modal is there all the time, and we want to make it so that it like is conditionally showed. Basically, we want to add like a button in the user list that will like show the create user modal, and then when you click the cancel, it'll like unshow the button. So the first thing I'm gonna do is in create user modal, I'm going to actually pass in props, and it's gonna take in like 3 props. So first is gonna be stocks. So this is gonna be like a list of stocks. And then onCreate. onCreate is gonna be a function that is called when like the user presses the create user button inside the modal. And then same thing for onCancel. It's like another function that is gonna be called when the user presses onCancel or presses the cancel button. So, and if we go back to the user list over here, like we just created the create user modal, but we did pass in the props. So first thing we got to do is actually like create state inside of the user list. So at the top, here's like, at the top is like usually where you put all the states. So I'm going to create a show modal state. So first it's going to be set to false. And then if we scroll down here, what we're going to do is delete this. And then what we're having is like a condition. So basically based on whether or not show modal is true, I'm going to render this create user modal. And Kasey, can you like autumn format? What's the
Yeah. Oh, wait.
Thanks.
He's not wrong thing.
Cool, thanks. And then previously I had like 3 props in here. So I'm gonna pass in these 3 props. And for now, I'm just gonna put stocks is empty. So I'm just gonna have an empty list, and then Kasey will fill that out later. And then for onCancel, I'm gonna do set show modal is equal to false. And then onCreate. And then what I'm going to do is have a function called refresh page. And what this function will do, hang on, give me a second. Okay, what this function will do is basically set show modal back to false, and then also refresh the user list. So if we go back right at the top here, I'm going to define refresh page. And then, so like I said, it's going to set the show modal state to be false. And then it's also going to call get user list. So basically, just to like recap, so this create user modal, I'm passing in like an empty stocks list, which will be filled out later. And then I'm passing in a function called onCancel. And when onCancel gets pressed, it's going to call this button, this function, which is basically just setting the show modal to be false. And then for onCreate, it's the same thing. It also sets the show modal to be false, but it also refreshes the user list. So that's that part. The other thing, oh yeah, did someone say something?
Oh, we didn't have the button at the bottom.
I was just about to do that. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Jessica, go for it.
So we want like to have a button at the bottom of the user list, like below the user list, and that will set the show modal to be true, and that's what's actually gonna like show the create user modal. So if we go in between these two, I'm just gonna create a button.
Okay, cool. So if you look at the bottom now, we should have a button at the very bottom. And if I click it, it should show the modal. And I believe if I click do we not write the, oh, wait.
I think because like we have to go to the create user modal and
That's
then actually
true.
call the on cancel. So right now, like
Okay.
these
Okay.
are just functions I'm passing in that I want to be called, but like the create user modal has to be the one actually calling these functions, which is why they're passed in as props.
Okay, cool. Did you want me to write the get stock list function, Jessica?
I can do it. It's fine.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so if we go back to the user list, like we also want to pass in stocks. So as a reminder, like you have stocks passed in as a prop for create user modal. So before what I did was I just like had an empty list of stocks. But then I actually want to like get the actual stuff from the database. So we're going to do something similar as we did in get user list, which was I guess done in a previous workshop. And we're just going to do get stock list. So create an async function, get stock list. And then we're going to say let stocks, and then we're going to use Axios to get the actual stocks. And the link is this is the endpoint. So it's the same base URL and then / stock. So it should be the same thing as this, except for replace user with stock. And then we're just gonna do some like quick error checking. So if the status code is 200, which is basically the OK status code, we want to set stocks to be stocks.data.data. Oh, and I forgot that, sorry. We actually want to have state, which is the stock state. So up here, we're going to say stocks, set stocks. So like initially, the stocks variable would be an empty list, but then once this function gets called, it's going to set the stocks to what we retrieved. Do you know why there's?
It says, oh, it's just a semicolon somewhere. Local function. Stocks. Yeah. I'm not sure. Just keep going. It's okay. I'll look.
Okay. And if it's not a status code of 200, which means that this is like an error, we're just gonna console.log. So this function basically will just get the stocks from this endpoint, and then it's gonna set what it retrieved into like the state. And then we actually need to call this function. So we're going to do the same thing as we did with the get user list, and we're just going to call it in the use effect hook. And then let's see. Instead of like passing in an empty list, I'm going to pass in stocks.
Okay, I'm trying to see where the semicolon is, but I don't. Oh, wait. No, that's okay. Fact state here. No. Okay, that's interesting. Let's see, give us a second. Async is spelled incorrectly. Thank you. Okay, that should work. So, okay, cool. You should have this now. We still need to edit the create user modal to actually use the stuff that Jessica passed in. Are there any questions about anything that we did? Okay, cool. Then I'm gonna keep moving on. So as you remember, so Jessica passed in stocks, this function for on cancel and this function for on create. So I'm going to go ahead and edit the user modal to actually use that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the user modal. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my state. So just like we had in the user list, I'm going to go const first name. So I'm going to keep track of the first name. So set first name equals use state, and then I'm going to default it to an empty string for now. And then we're going to do the same thing for last name. And then I'm also going to keep track of email. And my selected stock ID. So it's whatever they choose in the drop down. And I'm just going to default this to the first stock in the list for now. And then I'm also going to keep track of an error message. So you should have all that as your React state. Okay. And then let's see, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so that my form actually updates this state whenever the input is changed. Because I'm going to use all these pieces of state to eventually create a new user and send that request to the backend to actually create it in the database. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my form, and I'm going to go to my inputs, and I'm going to add in this attribute on change. And then I am going to make it so that every time I change this input field, I'm going to set first name to event.target.value, I believe. Okay, so it's going to call that function whenever this input is changed. And I'm going to do the same thing for all of these. So event, and then I'm going to set last name for this one to event.target.value. And then I'm going to do the same for email. So on change equals to event, set email, event.target.email, or not email, value. And then I'm going to also do the same thing for the select tag. So I'm going to go ahead and do, let's see right here, on change equals to event set selected stock, and then, oh yeah, that's right, and event.target.value. Okay, so that should be it for there. Okay, so whenever the inputs change, it's going to change my React component state appropriately. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to create a function to actually render my stock options. Because if you look here, I believe we still have those hard-coded values, but I want to be able to get whatever stocks are passed in, and I want to create these option tags kind of dynamically instead of having them hard-coded. So I'm going to go ahead and create a method to handle that. So I'm going to go here under state, and I'm going to create this function. I'm going to call it render stock options. And then Jessica just pasted what each stock looks like. So this is based on what gets returned from the database. So you have an ID, a company name, and a symbol in each one. So I'm going to use that to create my option tags. So I'm going to use stocks.map, and then I'm going to, for every stock in there, I am going to return an option tag. So I'm going to make the option tag key equals to stock.id, underscore ID. I want the value of this option tag to be equal to stock ID. And I'm going to have it display the stock.company name, see, plus, and then I'm going to add in the, what's it called? The symbol for the stock as well. So I'm going to do stock.symbol, and then I'm going to close that off with, let's see, plus, and then I'm going to add in the symbol for the stock as well. So I'm going to do stock.symbol, and then I'm going to close that off with, let's see, plus, and then I'm going to add in the symbol for the stock as well. So I'm going to do stock.symbol, and then I'm going to close that off with the parentheses, and then an extra. Oh, I forgot the sec. Make sure you have this curly brace here at the end. Okay. And then last thing I want to do is I'm going to return all these option tags I just created. And then last thing you want to do is you want to actually call this function. And to do that, I'm going to go to my return statement. And instead of all these hard-coded option tags, I'm going to call this render stock option function. So it's basically going to return a bunch of option tags, but based on whatever stock gets passed in, it will render different things. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of show that. So if I go here and I click the user modal, if I click favorite stock, you should see these are all the stock options currently in the database. So that's exactly what you want right now. Okay. Any questions about what I just did? Okay, then I will keep going. I believe the last thing we need to do is we actually need to handle submit on this form, because right now the form doesn't do anything. So in order to do that, I'm going to go back to the top of my code and I'm going to create a handle submit function. And this one's going to be async. I'm going to spell it correctly, make sure that doesn't happen. So async function, and I'm going to call this handle submit. Okay, and then pass in that event parameter. And the first thing I'm going to do is I want to do event.prevent default because I don't want the form to refresh the whole page. Okay, and then the next thing I want to do is I'm going to actually create that new user. So, or not create it, but basically gather all the information I need to send to the back end. So I'm going to store that in a variable called new user, and I'm going to make that an object, and I'm going to pass in first name. So this is from our state, last name, email, and favorite stock ID for this user is going to be whatever we selected. Okay, so we've got that. And then now we actually have to use that and send it back to the database. So I'm going to do created user equals await, and then I'm going to use Axios again, except I'm going to use a post request. So that'll basically tell Axios, hey, I want to add stuff to the database. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy the endpoint right now. And then unlike the GET request, we also need to pass in that new information. So I'm going to give the backend my user. Okay. And then I'm going to do some quick error handling. So I'm going to check if created user status is equal to 200, meaning it was successful. And I also have data that was sent back. I'm going to set the error message, if it was set to anything before, to nothing. And then I'm going to call that onCreate function that Jessica passed in. So what it's basically going to do, it's going to refresh the user list and hide the user modal. Okay, so that's on success. But on an error, we want to make sure we handle that. And you could do more elaborate error handling here, but I'm just going to set error message to fail to create user. Okay, so that should actually create a user in the database. So we have that method function. So we actually have to call it. That's the last part. So I'm going to go back down to my form. I'm going to give it handle submit equals submit is equal to that function I just created, the handle submit. And then lastly, if I go to my cancel button, I want to tell it on click.
Got it. Okay, it says this is.
Your face is on.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So on click, we're gonna call that on cancel function that was passed into the user modal. Okay, so I believe that is it for the code. So I'm gonna go ahead and give a quick demo, make sure everything's working. So I'm gonna go to the bottom, I'm gonna hit create. Oh, let's see. Let's see what happened there. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna do my name, Kasey Chuang, Kasey at uci.edu. I'm gonna, let's say, I don't know, Tesla, and then I'm gonna hit create user, and a new user should pop up right here. And if I click on it, my favorite stock would be Tesla right here. So I believe that is pretty much all the main stuff we're going to show everyone. The only thing is styling, but that is kind of up to you how you want to handle that. But yeah, you can add certain CSS to the create user modal.scss, or also I believe the user list one as well if you wanted to add extra styling. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Any questions that anyone has about anything? Okay. I don't know if Jessica, or Katherine, Cynthia, if we have some extra time, do we want to just go through the styling that we had before?
Like go through it again or just add to it?
The styling we didn't do. So the I think the create new user button and stuff. And if we want to add in some of the animation stuff we had earlier.
Okay, let me just pull it up 1 second.
And I know, Jessica, when we had that main page thing before, you had some CSS, right? Did you want to try adding that in?
Oh, like the blur. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, the blur, and then I think just the button styling, because right now it doesn't look so pretty. Since we have some extra time.
Okay, yeah, give me a second.
But yeah, if anyone has any questions or wants us to go over another thing again, just feel free to like speak in the chat or just unmute. But yeah.
Okay, one quick thing that we can do is like when you show the modal right now, like right now the modal just kind of goes right on top of the user list, but we can actually like blur the background just to make it like focus on the modal more. So what we can do is if we go to the user list, where is it? The SCSS file for the user list, we can create like a new class which is going to be called blur. And then what we can do is define one attribute, which is filter blur 8 pixels. And this is just pretty much just gonna blur whatever whatever HTML element has this class, it will like be blurred. So if we go back to the user list, we can have like this part just basically conditionally be blurred based on whether or not it has like the modal is showing or not. So we can actually just add like a new class, but we're gonna have to do like this plus space plus let's see, show modal. This is like a ternary operator, so if show modal is true, it's gonna return blur. If it's false, it's gonna return just an empty string. So this whole thing is either gonna be just like user list and a space, or it's gonna be user list space blur. And then when you have like user list space blur, that basically means this div is actually gonna be both a user list class and a blur class. Let's see. Oh, actually, I just realized I want to include the button to be blurred too. So scratch that. What I'm gonna do is I'm just going to make another div. And then this div is going to contain both the user list and the button. And then this div is the one actually that I'm just going to say class name equals show modal blur else empty. And that way it'll blur like both of these things at the same time. So try that out.
So yeah. Background. Okay, and then now we have like 2 more minutes. So I'm gonna style the let's see, I think we have class button here. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Does anyone have any other questions? Thank you. Sorry about all the errors too that we ran into. Thank you for the help as well. But if no one has any other questions, I think that's pretty much it. But yeah, thank you for coming. I'm gonna go ahead and stop screen sharing now. You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, if any